Hi, this is Lugar Inspection. We're actually here looking at a beautiful kitchen remodel. They opened up the wall so they can get a lot of daylight. They opened up the room. It's a beautiful application with the way that they actually did it. But if we look up, we can actually see that this was actually a wall that has been removed. So what we're going to find out, is this a load bearing, is it structural, or is it just your standard non-bearing wall? When we go up in the attic, we're going to double check and make sure that it was actually supported or spanned properly to make sure that when you purchase the property and you move in, it doesn't start sagging later or there's some structural consequences or issues that go on with it. So we'll go up in the attic now. Okay, now we're up in the attic, right over the exact same area that the wall was removed. And what we notice here is somebody actually installed, the contractor installed, proper support, doubled up, or called sistered joist, all the way across. And you can follow this all the way to the exterior wall, which is just past or to the side of the front door area. And as we come back to this T-section, this is actually the corner, and it transfers all the way over to by where the refrigerator was in that kitchen, which is a proper support for removing the lower walls. Then we actually see up on the roof, and this load is actually a purlin support was actually transferred on top of this sistered joist or beam area, so they can actually transfer the load of the roof onto it. All of this is an amazing installation. Everything's perfect. We're glad we actually saw this up here. A lot of times it's not here. This one was done correctly, so good job on it. Alright, now we're at the main electrical panel. It's about a 1,100 square foot house. We want to find out, is it the proper size main electrical panel? We look first at the main electrical breaker. It is a 100 amp main breaker, and then we pan up and we're going to look at the service entrance cables. Actually, the service entrance cables dictates how much power or what is the main coming to the house, not the size of the breaker. You can have the number 4 wires that we see coming out of the house up there at the service head, and we can have a 400 amp breaker. It is still only 100 amps because of the size of those wires. So we take off, first we notice that the panel is not labeled properly. That is very common in most residential houses. We take off the dead front cover. It is actually called a dead front cover for common sense reasons. It protects myself, you as a homeowner, your kids, from somebody not sticking something in here where the electrical wires, if somebody sticks something in here, can actually really cause some serious damage or death. Now we look at the size of the wiring up to the main, to the breaker for each circuit. We'll look at the 220 volts or the 2-pole breakers and make sure that everything is wired correctly, make sure it's grounded correctly, and we're going to make sure that there's actually a neutral bus bar and everything is actually wired correctly. There's no overheating, there's no improper wiring or any issues. This panel is wired actually great. The only problem that we have with it, which is a small little one, is it was not labeled properly. Now we're going to actually go and take a look at the sub panel. Alright, now we're in the garage. This is the electrical sub panel, so we have to take the cover off of every electrical sub panel, every panel, and make sure everything is wired correctly. The first thing we're going to notice that everything is actually labeled correctly, or it's labeled in the sub panel. Don't exactly know if it's correctly. So we'll remove the sub panel. And if we look at all the wiring, we first look at the feeders coming in, which is actually gives the power to the sub panel. And then we look at every circuit, making sure it's actually wired correctly, there's no overheating, there's a separate ground, separate from the neutral bus bar, a separate grounding bar, because it is actually a sub panel. That is one of probably the biggest things that are caught in sub panels. A guy, whoever, will just install the sub panel and have the grounds and the neutrals going to the same bus bar, which is a big issue that needs to be corrected. So as we look through everything, we'll notice that everything is actually wired properly in this. It's a very clean installation, and so we're good here. So we're good at the main electrical panel. We're great at the sub panel. Now we want to go and look at the rest of the wiring within the house. The easiest place to start off is we're going to take a look at what's going on in the attic. So we'll go up there next. Okay, we've seen the sub panel, we've seen the main panel. Now we want to come up in the attic and take a look at the wiring that is up in the attic to see if it continues, that whoever did the wiring in there, which did a phenomenal job, it continues up into this attic. So if we pan over to the left, we are going to see a whole bunch of recessed can lights and all this yellow Romex wiring. This yellow Romex wiring, any Romex wiring or any wiring, is supposed to be stapled or strapped to the wood members, the joist, within 12 inches coming out of every junction box. So this is actually a place that it looks bad maybe to the average homeowner, but this isn't that bad. It's not the cleanest job, but minimally get a licensed electrical contractor and have them strap all the wiring in the proper spaces. So it's one licensed contractor, one of the guys up here for a half a day, and all this would be taken care of. But as we transfer over here to the wall, we can see this is an area that there's a lot of improper wiring. This is very unsafe. This needs to be taken care of immediately by a licensed electrical contractor. This wiring, we have open splices, we're missing a junction box, we just have too much going here, and we don't even know where these circuits are actually going to. So these need to be taken care of immediately by a licensed contractor. These are the reasons why you get Lugar Inspection Services, to know the difference between what's going on with simple strapping and then large problems like this. Absolutely a safety hazard, needs to be taken care of. It could have been done right the first time. Well, it needs to be done right this time.